Thank you, Pete. Thank you so much, Pete. Hey, good evening, everybody. How are you tonight? What a wonderful event we've already had. It's an honor for me to be able to be here with you this evening. I'm also on a time limit, so I'm starting my timer right now because I don't want Linda mad at me when this is all said and done. You may or may not know this, but originally tonight, Linda asked a really dynamic and charismatic speaker to come this evening. But that person said no. So then Linda decided that she would ask a wise and thought-provoking speaker. But that person turned her down. So then she thought, well, I'll ask somebody who's handsome, somebody that the crowd can at least stand to look at for a few minutes. And you guessed it, that person said no. So as an utter last resort, Linda came and asked me, and at that point, I had already told her no 3 times. And I just didn't feel like I could do it to her again. No, that's not true at all, no. What an honor. Tonight is all about champions for life. And it's a joy for me to be able to share with you how throughout my life I have been surrounded by champions. When I was 10 days old, a tumor began to grow in the bones of my face. The tumor grew rapidly and destroyed much of my oral cavity. Doctors told my parents that I may never be able to verbally communicate. You have a picture here of my dad holding me after one of the surgeries, and I know what you're thinking. Now that I know that he had a tumor in his face, he doesn't look that bad after all. The tumor did a lot of damage, and eventually I was left with a non-congenital cleft palate, and what would have become my top teeth were destroyed. I had lots of surgeries to try to remove the tumor and reconstruct the damage. When I was 14 months old, I was diagnosed with pediatric juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Basically, my immune system operates in reverse. Instead of protecting my body, it attacks my body, which I think is very rude. Over the course of the last 34 years, the arthritis has left my body in a crippled and chronically painful state. My wrists don't bend, my ankles are fused. I've had both of my knees replaced, which, by the way, I highly recommend. I would just say, if you have some free time, maybe a long weekend, some vacation days to kill, I would just replace a joint. You're probably going to need to eventually, so I would just be proactive. That is my unsolicited medical advice for the evening. For much of my childhood, I struggled to walk and to deal with the pain of the RA, and for years I went to physical therapy and occupational therapy, and for 8 years I went to speech therapy to learn how to talk. In fact, even today, there's certain words that are very difficult for me to say. For example, if I'm arguing with my wife, I'm sorry? Is that how you say it? I'm still working on that one in particular. I do think, though, that I was destined to work in the nonprofit world. Here's a picture of me as a poster child for an Easter Seals telethon. And this is me with the governor of Alabama when he made May 14th Childhood Arthritis Awareness Day in the state. One day my parents were in the waiting room, and I was obviously not well. I had a feeding tube in and several other obvious indicators that I was a sick infant. And there was a lady in the room who struck up a conversation with my mom and dad, and she asked what was wrong with me, and my parents explained, and she asked this question. She said, did you know? Did you know before he was born that he would have all of these complications? My parents responded, no, that they had been unaware. And the lady said, that's too bad. If you would have known ahead of time, you could have just had an abortion. Now you have to know my mom. My mom is the mildest, most meek-mannered lady that you'll ever meet. But in that moment, she saw red. And she actually lunged across the room at this lady, and my dad had to physically pull her off so I could grow up with a mom not in jail. But see, to that woman, my life at that moment looked like a hardship, an inconvenience, something that was a bother that could have been avoided. Sometimes when a lady is pregnant, people will ask the parents, do you want a boy or a girl? And oftentimes the parent will respond by saying, oh, it doesn't matter. We'd be happy either way. As people will respond by saying, that's right, it doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl, as long as it's healthy. But what if it's not? I'm so glad that my parents did not value my life based on my health, but valued my life as an intrinsic, inherent gift from our Creator God, as a blessing from above. If you clap, it will cut into my time. I'm just kidding. My parents valued life every time they took me to my next appointment. They valued life every time they slept in an uncomfortable hospital bed. They valued life every time they advocated on my behalf. They valued life every time they carried me because I was hurting too much to walk. And in the pro-life community, we realize that valuing life extends beyond the labor and delivery room. What a blessing it is that Family Life Center has so many programs and resources and opportunities for parents in these communities who are bringing children into the world, no matter what the circumstances may be. When I was 8 years old, the arthritis went to my eyes, causing uveitis. It caused glaucoma and cataracts. Eventually, I would go completely blind in my right eye. The vision in my left eye is severely limited. Just keep that in mind if I ever compliment you or tell you that you look nice. I don't really know. There was a time when they were desperately trying to save the vision in my eye, so I used to have steroid injections directly into my eyeball. And there are people who will tell you that it doesn't hurt if something goes into the white part of your eye. And I just want you to know, those people are liars. I remember thinking, sitting there sometimes with my eyelids pried open, just watching as the needle was coming toward my... I just want you to be in the moment with me, okay? We're in this together now. And the shot would be done, and I would sit up, and tears would be coming down my face, and I'd look over at my mom, and she'd be crying too. When I got a little bit older, our neighbor across the street came over to me one day and he said, David, how would you like to cut my grass this summer? I'll give you $40 a week. Well, first of all, $40 a week to a kid is like $1 million a week. And I wasn't really thinking it through that I lived in Alabama and summer is a long time. Now, let me stop and just say, as a little parenthetical part of the night, what possessed a grown man to ask a crippled little boy to cut his yard? He should be in jail right now. But I remember I ran inside and I told my dad, I said, Dad, guess what? Mr. Sanders across the street, he's lazy. He's a terrible person. He said that I could cut his grass this summer. I remember the look in my dad's eyes, looking at his crippled little son, knowing that I was weak. But my parents never discouraged me from trying anything that I wanted to do. My dad said, that's great, son. And every Saturday I would go out and I would get the lawnmower and I'd go out and I would always start really well. I would get off to a good beginning, but eventually my body would just give out. And every week about that point there would be a tap on my shoulder. I would turn around and it would be my dad. He would say, "Why don't you let me take it from here?" And can I just tell you that every time in my life that I've ever reached a point where I just feel like, I don't know if I can do this anymore, it's like there's a tap on my shoulder from a Heavenly Father that says, "Why don't you let me take it from here?" One of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the Family Life Center is how they support moms and dads like mine. Moms and dads who are scared, who are overwhelmed, who are bringing children into the world in circumstances that they were not expecting. And through counseling and resources and supplies and love, the Family Life Center gives these moms and dads the tools that they need to be successful. The Family Life Center gives them hope and empowers them that they can do what they think they're not capable of doing. What a wonderful operation the Family Life Center has. Have you seen the silk purse? All right, this other room hasn't. Have you seen the silk purse? I'm so glad that there is a place in Newton, in Shelbyville, in Effingham, where moms and dads can go to bring children into this world no matter what the circumstances are. I grew up, you probably figured that out by now. I went to college and I met there at college a young lady named Johanna. Because of my medical condition, I had to go to the campus clinic on a regular basis, and she was working there at the clinic. And the more that I got to know Johanna, the more reasons I found to go to the campus clinic. You know what I mean? Johanna had an interesting medical history of her own. As a teenager, she had been diagnosed with a sarcoma cancer in her nervous system. She had undergone intense chemotherapy and radiation. We fell in love as we began to date, and in 2012, we got married. Now, we were an interesting couple. Sometimes I was in the hospital. Sometimes she was in the hospital. Here are some pictures of the night that she asked me to shave her head, because if the chemo was going to take her hair this time, it would be on her terms. Honestly, having children was not on our mind at all. Because of the chemotherapy that she had undergone and the steroids that I had been on for decades at that point, we had both been told separately that it would be very difficult for us to conceive. One night before a PET scan the next day, Johanna was taking a routine pregnancy test. And I heard from the bathroom, "Oh." And we were so surprised, but so excited. And everybody in our life was excited for us as well. Everybody except Johanna's oncologist. I remember sitting in the 6th floor of the University of Chicago's cancer ward as Dr. Andavia explained to us that any delay in Johanna's treatment could have serious consequences. His exact words to us that day were, "I'd really like to encourage you to consider an alternative option to this pregnancy." Now, it would be factually inaccurate if I told you that Johanna struggled with that decision. She was adamantly pro-life. She trusted God completely with her health, and she had already fallen in love with the idea of being a mom. And on October 11th, 2013, Macy Marie was born. We were so happy with our little family of 3, and Johanna was such a great mom to our little girl. Just a few months after Macy's birth, Johanna's cancer came back. A tumor began to grow on her sciatic nerve. She went through chemotherapy but didn't respond. And on March 22nd, 2015, Johanna woke me up. She asked if I'd hold her. She said, "I love you. Thanks for taking such good care of me." And 2 days before her 25th birthday, Johanna met Jesus. And on the other side of her bedroom wall was her 17-month-old daughter, who had no idea that when she woke up the next morning, her mom would be gone. Johanna was not a mom for very long, but I know how much she loved it, and I know how glad she was that before she left this life, she championed life for her daughter. For the next couple of years, I grieved terribly. I sincerely tried to be a good dad, but it was messy and it was hard. This 3-person journey that I was on had now become 2. I was trying to raise a little girl who was looking up to me, and I had no idea what I was doing. During those years when I was scared and overwhelmed, so many people loved me and helped me, which is exactly what the Family Life Center does in these communities. They come alongside moms and dads and they say, "You can do this. I know it's hard. I know you're scared. I know you're hurting, but we will help to get you to the other side." Would you like to meet Macy? I didn't bring her. Macy's 11 now. She's a wonderful daughter. In late 2017, God once again smiled on me. I was introduced to a beautiful lady named Kara. God made it clear very on that Kara and I were meant for each other, but she lived in New York and I lived in Illinois, and dating was getting very expensive. So I had to move that relationship along, and in June of 2018, my wife Kara and I got married. Kara has been such an amazing mom to our daughter Macy, and I'm so proud of her for that. For several years, Kara and I tried to have children of our own. One time she conceived, but the pregnancy was ectopic, ruptured, miscarried. We grieved over losing that child, but Kara always had the best attitude. And she always reminded me how amazing it is that Jesus is raising our baby in heaven. And now I couldn't be happier with my family of 3 and all of the wonderful memories that we get to make together. Shortly after Kara's ectopic pregnancy, she was approached by our local crisis pregnancy center and asked if she would work there. And for several years, Kara worked with moms in our community who were wrestling with the decision whether or not to have children that Kara would love to have. Now Kara works as a community health worker, helping moms and their children get the resources that they need to have a successful future. As Kara has worked with moms in our community, I have seen what a powerful impact places like the Family Life Center have all across our nation. There's been a story in Scripture that I always had a hard time with for a little while. It was the story of Moses as God called him to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt. And God said to Moses, "Tell Pharaoh, I am who sent you." Now you have to understand, I grew up in the home of an English teacher. And if you did not grow up in the home of an English teacher, spare me with your childhood trauma, okay? Just once in my life, I wanted to dangle a participle or split an infinitive or let that sentence run on like a rebel. But my mom was adamant that we speak proper grammar at home, and so I think I kind of got an ear for things that just don't sound right. And I read in Scripture, I am. What? It wasn't until I got old enough to realize all the things that I am not. God, I'm not very strong. And God says, I am. God, I'm not very brave. God says, I am. I am everything that you will ever need me to be. And He uses places like the Family Life Center to be the hands and feet of Jesus in our world today. This evening I was asked to share with you my story. But the truth of the matter is, it's not my story. My story is simply this, that time and time again I have been blessed enough to be surrounded by champions for life. My mom and dad demonstrated their commitment to life when they sacrificially and consistently cared for their sick little boy. My first wife, Johanna, proved her commitment to life when she paused her cancer treatments to make sure that her baby had the best chance of life. And my wife, Kara, shows her commitment to life every day when she wakes up and ministers to the women and families in our community. That's my story. A man who has been surrounded by champions for life. People who don't just say that they care about the pro-life community, but people who take action. And I believe that tonight is part of my story. Because once again, I am surrounded by people who don't just say that they care about life, but you're ready to take action and be a champion. Thank you.